Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Today's theme is spiritual psychology, Islam as a practice for transformation. We have always been told that Islam is not a religion but a way of life. And in fact, when we embrace the practice, we discover that Islam offers a daily practice for transformation of the self into your higher enlightened being. And if we look at the practices of Islam as these almost spiritual technology for change, then we approach our prayer mat, we approach our fasting month, we approach our charitable zakat, we approach our inner jihad, and we approach our once in a lifetime or more journey to Mecca as an opportunity to emerge into our birthright, the DNA that carries the potential for enlightened living. So we are told on the tongue of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Man arafa nafsahu, faqad arafa rabbahu." They who know their Lord, they who know themselves know their Lord. They who know themselves know their Lord. And what this invites us to is an exploration, an outer journey, an interior journey of going deeper beyond the veneer of who we think we are into what actually is there as your illumined essence. And how do we make this journey? There are over 7 billion ways to travel this path, because everyone will find their own way, even if not committed to a path, even if not committed to self-knowledge. Life itself almost conspires and collaborates by what you encounter in your day-to-day living as opportunities for self-examination, for self-analysis, for the opportunity to make choices that allow you to be on the higher end of the Quranic verse that says, man is created lower than the animals and higher than the angels. So we always have a choice at every moment to decide how we want to be, how we want to live in this universe. Another tradition says that Allah Ta'ala speaking in Hadith Qudsi, in a sacred tradition, I created everything in the heavens and the earth for you, and I created you for me. So our birthright, our home, where we belong, is in the realm of spirit, God's domain, Allah's domain. We are all part of that spiritual universe. But everything in this world, our families, our bodies, our opportunities, our work, our companionship, our food, everything is created for our sake. And in every single experience that we have in this world, there is always the opportunity of seeing the sacred light in it, inseparable from us, or to carry on unconsciously in this world. And the miracle, the magic, the adventure of life begins when we open the door to consciousness. We open ourselves to constantly being aware, watchful, in muraqabah, witnessing, being shahid, and seeing, learning to see things, opening ourselves up to seeing things as they are. This is a dua, this is a supplication of our blessed Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who said, Ya Rab, O my Lord, show me things as they are, which means show me things beyond the form, let me see the meaning. Let me see the essence of things, the ultimate reality of things. Man arafa nafsahu fakad arafa rabbahu. See beyond the form of who we are, and we see the divine light within. So spiritual psychology helps us in this journey. Psychology itself, no amount of deep psychological understanding can free the soul, can free us from this prison of the limited self. Psychology is very useful, very strategic to dealing with things like neuroses, helping us overcome patterns of behavior that we wish to leave behind us that obscure us from higher evolvement. But it does not heal, and it does not reveal to us our wholeness. The positive news is that in recent decades, transpersonal psychology, the fourth school of psychological thought, has brought into Western psychology Eastern spiritual traditions. So the teachings from Sufism, Islam, and the other major world spiritual paths have now been incorporated into the study of transpersonal psychology, and that has brought us closer to connecting with soul, and it's a positive move. So let us look at this notion of surrender. We say that Islam means surrender. Surrender to what? And surrendering what? To what? So we say surrender to God. The actual process of Islam, submission, is surrendering who we think we are, the illusion of all of the conditioning, the monumental persona and self that we created around our identity. And because we cannot see things as they are if we constantly filter them through our fears and expectations. I am this spiritual leader in a community. I am a Sufi teacher. SubhanAllah, how can you see the other through the veil of one's sense of aggrandizing oneself? Or I'm a political leader. I am a teacher. You are the student. How can we learn anything with that sort of a veil between us? And when we relinquish these labels, these identifications that we have imposed upon ourselves, then we can see things without the prejudging of having some emotional stake in the outcome. So when a mother sees two children playing in the playground, and their child is one and another child ending up with some kind of a quarrel, the immediate instinct, because it's built into us for survival, is my child is right, stop bullying my child. But if we step back and simply witness, we might have seen that our own child might have accidentally kicked sand in the face of the other child and precipitated the altercation. And this is where we become shahid. This is where we become free of the attachments that blind us from seeing things as they are, by relinquishing the idol of the self, by relinquishing our identities. That does not mean we stop teaching. That does not mean we stop leading the community. That does not mean we stop cooking the best meal in the family. But it means that we do not identify ourselves, who we are, with what we do. So that is one crucial stage of surrender. Good. How do we move? How do we flow? How do we connect? How do we take on our highest self, this enlightened being? We have an extraordinarily clear mapping, a cosmology on how to achieve this in a very, very efficient and short period of time with consciousness and vigilance. The great Sheikh Darqawi who was the Pole of his day, said that he had 40,000 murids, and many of them became shuyukh, sheikhs, spiritual masters, not only in Morocco but throughout all of North Africa and extending in parts of the world. And he said, if you have utter ikhlas, sincerity, to attain fana, to attain the relinquishing of the lower ego self that veils us from the light of our illumined nature, can take 3 months, and with even more sincerity it can take a month, and even deeper sincerity maybe a week. And for those who are desperately yearning for that inner liberation, 3 days is nothing. So we actually have opportunities at every moment to be in our fullness of humanity, which is as an enlightened being, a spiritual being. The mapping that we use in our Islamic cosmology looks at recognizing that the human being, all creation, plants alike, animals alike, our behavior is motivated by two forces: the force of attraction and the force of repulsion. You can call it the law of attraction, the law of repulsion. In psychology, it is called the pleasure and the pain principle. We are attracted to that which we desire, which gives us some pleasure, happiness, joy, contentment, and we are repulsed, or we avoid that which causes us pain or removes the pleasure. Pleasure, pain, attraction, repulsion. These are the two motivating forces in all of human behavior. So if we are, let's say, attracted to chocolate, as an example, that's fine. That's fine. Cocoa gives us energy, it's sweet, it's pleasurable, it balms difficult emotional encounters, a piece of chocolate. But when we are in excess of that, we develop illnesses, sugar diabetes, and so on. And if we are in denial of that pleasure of chocolate, then we see what happens to people that deny themselves the sweetness in life. They become a bit hard, bitter, abstaining, yes. So what we want, again, is to be ummatan wasatan, people of the middle way. Enjoy in moderation or balance that which we desire and gives us pleasure. Not to excess, not overdoing it, and not denying the self. So eating is fine. We don't become gluttons, and we don't become so totally abstaining, ascetic from food, that becomes our pride. Oh, I've been fasting all my life, 365 days of the year. Aren't I holy? So we avoid the extremes and take the middle path. This is traditionally called modesty. I prefer the use of balance, the middle way, balance, temperance, balance. So with respect to this driving force of that which we're attracted to, the pleasure drive, we want balance. Now, the force of repulsion, avoidance. Here, we encounter qualities such as fear, anxiety, nervousness, panic, all that sort of thing. We want to avoid things that take away our joy and bring sadness, fear, and so on. The quality of courage enables us to meet dangerous situations or threatening situations with equanimity, with a sense of approaching it, having considered the consequences. So we can say one is courageous, but an excess of courage, someone who wants to be maybe macho, show off the bravado of being courageous, they become foolhardy. In other words, we see people who there are occasions when a person may feel, let's say you lead a battalion into war, or you lead a family to safety during a tsunami or a hurricane, and there's danger threatening, and yet you say, I'm not afraid, I'll take you across, and everybody perishes. That isn't courage. Or if your enemy is outnumbered 1,000 to 1, is it courage or is it foolhardiness? Is it recklessness? Recklessness to do so. Some people climb mountains. I have friends who are mountaineers, and the conditions are totally unacceptable. There's no chance of escaping 7 days of a snowstorm. And to show bravado, they take to the mountain anyway. And then it takes, 3 helicopters and 10 teams of rescuers to go after them. People lose their lives trying to save someone who was foolish, foolhardy, reckless. So courage, and if we, of course, abstain from acting in the face of danger, we become cowards. That's cowardice. So what we want is again that middle way of assessing the situation and acting courageously without being reckless and without showing cowardice. Again, that's the middle path, and courage is the highest quality or virtue of the pain principle or the force or the law of repulsion. So plants avoid the shade, and there's tropism, and they grow toward the sun, so they survive. They have the pleasure of growth. And animals do the same. But human beings have an additional realm of consciousness. We call it the neocortex, probably developed in the human being 600,000 years ago. The most recent part of our development, and that allows us to reflect upon our thoughts. So we don't simply act by stimulus response, by cause and effect. We have the intelligence, the ability to reflect and think, is this actually a dangerous situation? Am I actually overeating the amount of chocolate? You see, a lion will kill, eat what it needs, and then leave the carcass. Stimulus response, it's full. Only the human being can go on gluttonizing itself. And at the same time, the human being can step back and say, that's enough. I want my health. I don't want to risk blood sugar levels. And they stop. So we have the pleasure pain principle. We have attraction repulsion. And the third line, or the third force, the third law within the human being is that of the intellect. Now, how do we find the middle way in intelligence, in using the light of the intellect? The highest application of our intelligence is wisdom. And wisdom is being able to evaluate all of the options available and to choose the course most appropriate to the outcome. If we are deficient in wisdom, of course, we're very dim-witted. Stupidity is another way of describing that. That's the deficiency of wisdom. And the excess of wisdom are those individuals who are too clever. It's the overuse of your intellect to try to gain brownie points, to aggrandize the self. And sometimes by manipulating, by being too clever, we bring about exactly the opposite of what we wish. So the middle way again is wisdom, judicious, appropriate application of your intellect. And when we combine within ourselves, when we are able to take the way of balance, to imbibe the virtue of the quality of courage and wisdom, only then do we have all of the attributes, all of the character necessary to actually guide oneself in this world. And this is called enlightened leadership. And with those three qualities, balance, courage, and wisdom, a person is able to enact fair play, justice. It is not feasible to be just in a situation without balance, without the ability to see the appropriateness of a situation as they are, without the courage to speak beyond our personal stake in the outcome, and to apply the light of the intellect on that event. So when we take on these three qualities, then we can actually be the imam, we can be the guide, not only for ourselves, to protect us from ourselves, but also to lead our families, our communities, and our arenas of influence, whether it be your profession, your job, those you care for around you, those you don't care for around you. It's such a gift to have this cosmology, because really this is all anyone ever needs in life. Spirit, your connection with soul, your transcendent experiences will come if we lead this kind of a life. You will walk out in nature and you'll see the face of God behind everything, in front of everything. It happens because you've cleared all of the shadowy veils that tend to obscure us from seeing things as they are. Well and good. And then the next question is, well, how do we achieve that when all my life I've been conditioned and programmed and almost educated to want to be head of household, leader in the community, wanting to achieve ambition, success. This spiritual mapping allows you success. I mean, it is designed for your happiness and a successful life in this world. But we often have past memories, blockages. There are incidents from earlier on in our life, perhaps, that make it difficult for us to be courageous, or that perhaps challenge us from the way of balance, so we tend to overeat for comfort foods and such. And again, we're very much gifted by a mapping of how we can transcend, overcome, resolve, and move beyond the limitations of past habits and behaviors. And the modus operandus, the dynamic behind it, is understanding our inner senses. Our inner senses. We have 5 inner senses that in a way mirror, well, we have 5 outer senses, which are, we all know that, yes?
Well, the sight,
sight,
the
hearing,
tasting,
tasting, touching,
and smelling.
And smelling.
Good.
So there are 5 channels of perception that allow us to experience what we consider the world inside and the world outside. But these 5 outer senses are only channels, they're only perceptual sensory inputs into something inside that actually creates the understanding of what we are perceiving. Because the eye itself does not tell us what we see, it simply draws in the image. And we have 5 inner senses, and we'll go through them one by one and see how they actually create our interpretation, our perception and understanding of the world. The first inner sense would be called the unifying sense. The unifying sense. And what it does is it takes all 5 perceptions and it puts it together as an image. So I'm looking at the room. I see people, I see books, I see beautiful calligraphy, the sunlight coming through the window, the microphone, flowers on the desk, and water. And all of this come in instantaneously. And they're processed in the visual cortex. And the inner sense, this faculty of unifying all these various percepts, combine it into a sensible picture. So we call the unifying sense the common sense. Yeah, it's common sense. Can't you see? Can't you see what's there? Calligraphy, water, and so on. The second faculty, the second inner sense, is called the khayal. The khayal. And it's often translated as the faculty, the imaginal faculty. The imaginal faculty. It's closely related to imagination, but it has a broader meaning as well. And it's the faculty that allows us to see form and pictures. We see form, we see solid objects. Yesterday we spoke about the fact that ultimate reality is nothing but a cosmic soup. Atoms whirling in space, photons, light, energy. The smallest particle of universal manifestation after the Big Bang. After kun fayakun, be and it is. From nothing came something. That cosmic soup is unified, unity in oneness. Then why do we see each other as separate points in space? Why do we see solid objects? It's that inner sense of the khayal, this faculty of allowing us to experience the world as solid, that does that. And there are people who are brain damaged and they do not see the world as solid. They cannot discern discrete objects. So that faculty intact in a healthy system allows this ability to picture, to solidify, to see images. The third faculty is called the wahima. Wahima. And it is the ability we have to attribute meaning, to interpret a thing as either good or bad. It tends to be polarized. It's either good, bad, beautiful, ugly, sweet, sour. We like it, dislike it, friend or foe, and that sort of thing. The faculty of attributing meaning, it's the labeling faculty. Judgment comes in that. And the word that's used often, waham, you've heard that, waham. It's all waham, it's all illusion. It's related to this, but it's really what we do all the time, consciously and almost always unconsciously, is we tend to give a value judgment to our experiences. We like it, we don't like it. The fourth quality is called the hafidha. Hafidha. The word hafiz comes from it, those who memorize the Quran. Hafidha is our memory bank. So all of our experiences, both conscious and unconscious, are stored away like snapshots in the memory bank. And the fifth inner sense is called the mufakira. Mufakira. It comes from the word fikr, which means to contemplate, to think, to reflect. And And this last one allows us to, if you like, ponder and almost, analyze the judgments given by the Wahima. So these are the 5 inner senses. They work together and they work in an instant. I see Sadhaka and instantly all of this comes together. I see her sitting there, lovely turquoise scarf, summer dress. Immediately I pull out the snapshot from my past. She's a friend. It all comes together and I see Sadhaka, friend. I'm happy to see her. That's the way it works. It's instantaneous. And when we don't pay attention, all of these things end up being habits. And when our initial memory or our initial judgment or labeling of a person or an event has not been positive, then what do? We create a groove. It's actually done in the brain, synapsing and all our neurotransmitters actually create a pattern of least resistance. So we immediately fall back into old habits, which is the purpose of going through this exercise to see if we can't now decide and choose to create new, healthier, more wholesome, positive habits. And we can. The two key aspects on the inner senses are the khayal and the wahima. The khayal and the wahima. If we only take away this dynamic with us, your life will change. Can change forever, and you will always have the optimal living quality, relationship quality that you look for. How does it work? We label an event. So my perception is it's a beautiful universe. My perception is it might be raining, it might be a miserable day out, but because I have had a taste that the world is sacred, irrespective of what the form is, I will see the world as beautiful and essentially good. And that then becomes the khayal, that then becomes my experience out in the world. We know of people who get up on the wrong side of the bed and they say, oh, I didn't sleep well again. Whenever I don't sleep well, it's a miserable day. And they go out and the porter outside the door is miserable, the bus driver is miserable, your colleagues at work are miserable. You experience what you have set up in your wahima to be out there waiting for you. And if you also get up on the good side of the bed, some mornings, the whole world looks like a bowl full of cherries and it's all yours for the enjoyment. And you go out smiling and feeling great, and suddenly strangers are smiling back at you. You drop your books and someone picks it up for you. We've all had these kinds of experiences. Most of us, when we start to pay attention, we recognize that when Allah Ta'ala put that quality of Al-Qadr within us, Al-Irada, the will, the ability, we have the ability, the power, the choice, the will to actually transform our life. And we can also go back, revisit our memory bank and change our original interpretation of an incident. So let's see, how can we do that? The last time I visited a friend, she didn't offer me tea. So I said, not a very worthwhile visit, was it? And then I see her again on the street and she says, Aliya, come over, let's have a cup of tea. And my first thought is what? Not a good deal, is it? Going all the way over and not having tea. But then I say, astaghfirullah, shame on me. It's a new day. Kula yomen huwa fishan. At every day, Allah is on a new affair. At every moment, new opportunities can be opened. At every day, the universe changes, in-breath and out-breath. Every atom is renewed, every single instant in this cosmic universe. Why am I holding on to something that happened last week? So I revisit that snapshot and I say, it's my limitation. It's my limitation. And I say, yes, I'd love to come to tea. And when I do go to visit her, my heart is open. I feel differently because I say, so was it all about tea, or maybe there's a wonderful friendship here? And with that openness, suddenly, there's feast and cookies and biscuits and everything in front of me. A specific example that happened was with one of the children of a dear friend who always had, for some reason, we amongst all the siblings and children, she was the only one with whom it never felt like a flow of friendship between us. And I always saw her as someone's child, and that might have been the daughter of a certain friend. And perhaps my identifying her, my labeling her in that way might have had something to do with it. Also, whenever I see her or think about her, I said, oh dear, I hope things can be better the next time, which means I'm thinking they were not good. So I said, silly me, my limitation. And I dropped happily all of those notions I had about her based on the past. And I said, ultimately, she's only a light of God as I am. We're all sacred souls. All of us universally the same. No different to me. And she came to visit one day for coffee. And when she came to the intercom, I heard her name, I let her through. And when she came up, I actually just saw that light coming from her, because I had made the intention to see her only as pure soul. No history between us. Fresh beginning. And she looked at me, and I'll never forget her face. She says, I'll make the coffee. And she went to the kitchen, made coffee, and it's been wonderful ever since. We never talked about anything. We just had a new beginning. And the power of this type of self-awareness, of constantly living in higher consciousness, in full consciousness, being committed to the best that can, your best self, the best that can be in your relationships, will bring about. It's a cosmic law. It's not anything that's come from Islam or this religion. It's in the cosmos. It's revealed knowledge, and greater than all of us, and it works. It works. And it may not work in the way we think it works, because we have an expectation of how it should be. So one has to be open to, you think a thing is bad for you, but there may be goodness in it, Allah tells us. We have no right on the outcome. We have no control, no mastery on the consequences. We can only make the best appropriate choice based on cause and effect, and hope that the effect or the consequence will meet our intention. But this is, so all we can do is have the best intentions, purify our inner hygiene, our inner senses, so that we come fresh and new and open with love, forgiveness, gratitude in every moment. And almost, and the flow will return to you, but it is not our power to condition that. The Blessed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would implore his Lord in dua and say, why is it that people do not come to the good news, the bashara? I am telling them there is freedom, liberation, love from their impoverished spiritual selves. There is the glory kingdom, there is light, there is redemption. Allah is one. Why do people not come? And the revelation that came back to him was, your work is only to give the good news. It is my affair to bring hearts. So all we can do is bring the good news, which is the good news of our enlightened self. I am here without prejudice, or I minimize my prejudice. I am here trying to bring my best self, creating space, a clearing, a meadow, so we can meet in harmony and cooperation, collaboration, and love and friendship. And that's a big thing to be able to do that, because it gives you the power, the ability, it gives you the grace to create the kind of relationships you want. So the dynamic between the Wahima, our faculty of attributing, giving meaning to things, labeling and judging things, and the khayal, the way we then experience it back from the world outside, or even within ourselves, are the two central faculties that really are responsible for the way each one of us feels and thinks and perceives at this very instant. You are brought here to where you are now because of those two abilities. So all your past experiences, the way you've labeled it, the way you've thought about it, may condition us to the way we are now. To the degree that we've liberated ourselves beyond those limiting qualities of the past, has brought us to where we are now. This is so important, and it's so beautiful to know that everything has been given to us to be able to emerge into our higher, more enlightened selves. All the tools have been given to us. We have that freedom, we have that choice, and we have that ability for it to happen. Let us revisit. I want to do an exercise. Everyone has paper and pencil today. Wonderful. I would like us to reflect for a moment on some incident, on some aspect in our life that we would like to see happen differently. It may be a habitual behavior we want to change. It may be a relationship we want to enhance. It may be some goal, some objective we'd like to achieve. Whatever it is, if you can identify in one line, in one sentence, if you can identify an incident that you would like to see happen differently in your life. Maybe a better relationship with someone, or I'd like to stop procrastinating, whatever it is.
In the past.
Something in your life that you would like to change.
Now.
Now. Oh. It may have etiology, its roots in the past, but it's affecting one's life now. Yes. And when you do identify that incident or that desired outcome, reflect on your role in that experience and how you to what degree do you take responsibility for it, or what is your contributing element in that role or in that incident? How do you normally behave in that incident? What is your response? I see a friend who didn't offer me tea. My immediate response was, "Oh, there's no point going there because I won't have a decent refreshment." And I want to change that outlook that I have. Or my children and I constantly quarrel, or they never listen to me. I want to change that. Or I always seem to sabotage my relationships or my chances for promotion at work. Why do I do that? How can I change that? Or I never got along with my mother or my father, and I would like to create a better relationship with them. Okay? So does anyone need more time? No, it's fine. Now consider for a moment what it is that you do in that situation and what it was based on. For example, let's say my teenager never listens to me, no matter how much good I have intended for her. Look at one's role in that, and one might see that I'm pouring my expectation into someone else's behavior, or my fear of being unacknowledged is leading me to that, or that person was not fair in the past according to my judgment. And so I'm reacting. I was treated badly, and therefore I've shut out any possibility of friendship with this person. Look at why one is reacting, why one feels the way one does in this incident, and see if you cannot revisit that original event and perhaps see it from the eye of Tawheed, see it from the other person's perspective, play God for a moment and look down upon yourself and whoever else is involved in this, and see if there is not another perspective as a witnesser where you can see your behavior, your role in it, without that investment of having to be right or having to be valued or acknowledged. So take a broader Tawheedi perspective on the entire event and see if there is another way that you can understand the event. In my case, my mother and I never had an easy relationship for most of my growing life. And I thought she always preferred the other children. Then I came to her and I explained my desire to have a warmer relationship. And she said, "Aliya, don't you recall ever since you were 2 years old, I would try to help you put on your dress or your shoes, and you always pushed me away saying, 'Mommy, I can do it, I can do it.' I was so independent. I never allowed her to be a mother. And now we have the most beautiful relationship. And because I revisited and I allowed to see not that she was always distant, but that revisiting the scene, I learned that I actually pushed her away. So this is what we do when we reframe or when we begin to witness an earlier incident. Widen the perspective. Because in all experiences, yesterday we spoke about the self and its desire for survival and preeminence. And the self will always be hurt, rejected, embarrassed, humiliated. Silly me, you know. We take ourselves, the self takes itself so seriously. And when we allow the eye of Tawheed, the vision, the broad, global, universal perspective on our experiences, we begin to see how others were relating as well. And our narrow perspective of just being, the self being affected by it, broadens into a compassionate understanding of seeing things as they are. Seeing things as they are. My mother never pushed me away. I pushed her away. Not because I wanted to, but because as a child, I can do it, of course. I'm capable. Yeah. Okay. So when revisiting it in this manner, has it changed in any way, altered in any way your understanding, are you seeing it in perhaps a different perspective? What we are saying is there's a natural tendency for the self to say, I'm right. And we are saying that that is such an impoverished way to live. Because when we look at a larger picture, we bring in our full life and we can see other people's perspectives and so on. Now, I'm not speaking about injustice. If there is, any physical bullying, abuse, if there is anything that is that is unjust, those things have to be corrected. So beyond the incident, what else is going on? How can we transform that relationship? Does anyone need more time on this? Has anyone, I'd like to see a show of hands, has there been some new perspective on what on the way you now perhaps see that earlier that experience? Good. Yes? Yeah, wonderful. All right. And for those who perhaps have not as yet seen that, continue to reflect on it. Sometimes it's necessary, as I did, to go back to that person involved, as I did with my mother. But explore it. This is how we evolve and move in our spiritual maturity. We move on. Then, if you would write down how you would now how you now commit to acting in future, to enable you to carry on and live in this new perspective, to create a new way of being and relating in this world. Should be able to do it in one sentence. It says it's like writing out a goal or objective or a commitment and how you now wish to be in relation to the incident you've just explored. Oh no, okay, we're done. Alhamdulillah. If you need a little more time, please do so. But that concludes the exercise. And with Ramadan, the month of fasting coming up in July, it would be a good time to continue to carry out this objective. And at the end of Ramadan, if you can share it with one or two people in this group, share your experience of this in about a month's time, and I think you'll see the fullness of the benefit and the gifts that can come out of it. Would someone like to share their comment or share their experience on this exercise? I would like to hear from one or two people, and I'm sure the others would also. Yes? Would you please?
Really?
Yeah. If you would turn so everyone can hear you as well, or stand.
I don't know if I want to.
Oh, all right. If you don't want to, then please, absolutely. Sadhika, anyone? Shama?
Okay, I will. One of the things that I'd really like to address is my possibly too harsh and critical role as a mother. And subhanAllah, it was a question that I was going to raise with the Sheikh, and then alhamdulillah you've addressed it. And it's something that I think I've been reviewing and looking at for a while now, that if there are turbulent waters in the dynamics of my relationship with my children, what responsibility do I need to take for that? And by everything that I've received from both the teachers here since yesterday, alhamdulillah, it hasn't even necessitated a private request for either of you to answer specific questions. God has delivered those answers from each of you, from different perspectives, from both the male and female. Very, very strong, clear perspectives on those positions. And so, in terms of my role as a mother, because I think my focus has been on my career for too long, there's a lot that I need to take responsibility for and address. So alhamdulillah, jazakallah, subhanallah.
Shama, so how will you address this? What specific steps are you?
The immediate practical step that comes to mind instantly is, because of the very fierce, very critical, analytical, combative role that I have to adopt and have had to adopt in my work for the last 20 odd years, I haven't tapped into a very feminine side. And I think that it doesn't help that there are very strong, clear, assertive messages that I need to deliver to my children, which I think can at times be very dogmatic. And the instant steps, practical steps that I feel I've heard from each of you, each of the sheikhs leading this, is that I need to take responsibility for shedding some of the criticism because of my fears that the children won't be okay. They're not my responsibility. I have a role, I'm their guardian, but ultimately they're going to be fine. And I think that if I could just let go of some of that control, criticism, judgment, fierceness, harshness, and to stop applying the characteristics that I have acquired during my career, shed that and open up to the... Somebody said something about softness, and that's almost been something that I've shunned.
One way toward that is to allow your children to speak. So what we did in our home was after dinner, my father would sort of preside by allowing each of the children to kind of talk about what's on their minds and so on. And I think your children, if they are allowed to speak and you actually are open to hearing them, and it's wonderful that you say you are committed now to just allowing the fears and the overly jalal persona to kind of fall away, so to let the more motherly, nurturing side appear. Just start by letting your children speak to you and let them feel safe, that they're not being criticized by what they say. Because, often that resistance we find with our children is simply because they're reacting to our stance. And when we allow them to just be, you might be quite surprised that a lot of your fears are completely unfounded. And as we said yesterday, evidence shows, and it has been proved again and again, that good nurturing, at the early stages in life, even with absent parents, because parents today work, double family shifts on both parents. But if the grounding is there may be a period of, exploring the self, and it may appear like wild behavior sometimes to a concerned parent. But there is often, almost always often, the return to roots. So, as you say, they are your trust, and parents sometimes need to trust and see the children not only as their children, but as human beings with their own destinies. Mm-hmm. All right, just one more contribution, and then we can conclude this. Thank you very much, Shama. It's really useful. Yeah. Thank you very much. Salam alaikum. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheikh Aliya. Thank you. The program.
Sorry, it went on too long.